Hey there, listeners. I am Joanne Lee Cornish, your truth bomb dropper in the world of weight loss, body composition, and mastering the art of rocking the body you've always deserved and dreamed of in midlife and beyond. Let's cut through the noise. Society tells us it's downhill from now on. We're told to embrace the middle-aged weight gain, embrace the muscle loss and poor health. If that's your vibe, then cool. But if you're ready to defy the narrative, then I am your gal. This podcast is a no fluff podcast where we break down the essential truths of body composition, toss around some practical tips, and dissect the latest trends. I'm not here to sugarcoat. I'm here to show you what's not just possible, but downright probable for you. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to click the link in the show notes to explore how we can team up and kick mediocrity to the curb. I offer one-on-one coaching, my ever-popular group coaching programs, and my corporate Educate to Elevate program. Okay, let's get on with the podcast. Hello. Enjoy. Excuse me if I sound a little bit congested. I've got my once every decade head cold going on. But today I want to talk about volume. Volume with regards to hypertrophy training. I just finished coaching Muscle Month maybe 2 weeks ago, and we were discussing all different types of protocols with regards to building muscle. So first, let's be specific. In today's podcast, I'm talking about hypertrophy training. So hypertrophy is the building of muscle. So the muscle gets bigger, denser. Yeah. As opposed to strength training, where you don't necessarily have to get bigger. Agility training, speed training. So all these other training methods, goals, I should say, they're very specific. I mean, if you want to get stronger, it's pretty specific how to train for strength. If you want to get faster, it's pretty specific. If it's sports specific or agility, it's pretty specific how you need to train. Now, hypertrophy training, which is what most of us like to do, building muscle, making it bigger, denser, making it more defined, change, making this visually look different. We have a lot of leeway. There's a lot of different tools we can use, which for me makes it a lot more fun. But one thing we do have to strive for is volume. So hypertrophy training requires volume. Where do we get the volume from? Well, the obvious one is if you increase your weights. So if you are lifting more weight, more poundage, it's the weight multiplied by the reps, right? And the sets, and you get your volume, and you're increasing volume there by the weight you are lifting. So you've got the weight you are lifting, the reps you are getting, the sets you are doing. Okay, there's your volume. And the volume is increased there by the weight, the number related to that weight. So we increase the weight, because when we increase the weight, the reps usually go down. Yeah. But we increase the volume because the weight is going up. So that's great. That's the obvious one. You lift more weight. But how else can we get volume? So somebody like myself, I'm now 57 years old. I've been training since I was 14. My body's been a lot stronger. It's lifted a lot of weight. I'm still training as heavy as I can. But there's also a point at which, for a lot of people, there's a risk reward. Like, do I really strive to squat a lot heavier than I do already? Is that going to work? Is my hip going to like that? Is my knee going to like that? Maybe not. So what I'm saying is we might have to find other tools. Now, for most people, primarily, you want to lift heavier weights. You need to get the body to adapt safely to heavier weights. But how else can we create volume? So if I'm using not as much weight, then think of the formula here, not as much weight, so the poundage is less. But if I do more reps, then I can increase the volume there. So the weights I'm using is down, but I'm doing more reps, so time under tension, multiplied by the sets, so we can increase more volume that way. What about somebody like me? This is a tool I use a lot. And to increase volume, I'm going as heavy as I can safely, whatever that weight is. I'm going to try and go as heavy as I can. The reps are going to be somewhere in the middle there. I rarely go below 6 reps, but I rarely go above 15. Sometimes I do, but rarely. So my reps are in that sort of range. My weight is I'm going as heavy as I can. So how then do I progress? Right? I'm going as heavy as I can. I'm always trying to move that dial. I'm staying in a good rep range for hypertrophy. So how then do I increase the volume? And I'll do that I'll do more sets. I'll do more sets, and then what I'll do is I'll reduce the rest in between the sets. Yeah. So now we've got the weight that we're lifting, the reps that we're doing, how many sets we're doing, and now how much rest are we taking in between sets? These are the variables that you can use, and you can change them. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to use the same formula all the time. So maybe one workout, I'm going to go heavier weight, less reps, because I'm using a heavier weight. Maybe I'm doing, 4 sets, and I'm taking enough rest, maybe 45 seconds to a minute, that I need to allow me to lift that heavier weight. That's how I'm creating volume in one workout. Maybe the next day I'm like, hey, I don't want to do that. I want to do that. I'm going to bring the reps down a little bit. I want to get higher reps. So I'm going to get higher reps with less weight. I'm going to do, 5 or 6 sets, and I'm going to do it in a circuit with other exercise, so there's not much rest in between. This is how there's just different ways of creating volume, but it's always volume that we're trying to create with hypertrophy. So compare that to a strength athlete. So the strength athlete there is trying to get increase the poundage. They're trying to move more weight. And this is where their rep range is going to be, probably less than 5. Their working sets, less than 5 reps. So they're trying to really get the weight, lower rep range, and they're going to take a lot more rest in between sets. They're going to take, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes in between sets, because their goal is specific to strength. If they reduce their rest period too much, they don't recover enough to lift that weight. If they move their rep range, they're not going to lift as much weight. So it's specific, but what happens there is they don't get necessarily the volume that's needed by hypertrophy. So you can get somebody that's very, very strong, but not necessarily be that muscular. You can get a strength athlete and a bodybuilder, and the strength athlete is way stronger than the bodybuilder, but the bodybuilder has more muscle because the bodybuilder does hypertrophy training. So you have to be clear about your goal. If your goal is strength, for one, you don't just go in and do 5 reps on an exercise, right? And again, with a strength athlete, they're not necessarily doing bicep curls. Right? They're doing compound movements. They do multi-joint movements. Yeah. And then increasing the load, reducing the reps, maxing the load, and taking as much rest as necessary. Now, if you start trying to merge these strategies, things can go wrong. So you've got like hypertrophy training. We've got to create volume. And again, what tools have we got? We've got the weight that we're lifting, the reps that we're using, the set that we're doing, and the rest in between sets. Yeah. What if you're seeing this a lot, guys? You're lifting your weight, you're doing your reps, you're getting your sets, but you're taking about 3 minutes because you're checking out your social media in between sets. The rest period now got too long. You've reduced the intensity, you've reduced the volume of that workout. It's not going to be as effective. Yeah. If you're doing I don't know, your 4 sets of 8 reps with as much weight as you can, but you're taking 3 minutes in between sets. You're not keeping the intensity. You're neither going for hypertrophy nor are you going for strength. You're hanging out in the middle. And at first, if you're like somebody new to this, it'll work. I mean, if you're new to weight training, you do anything, it's going to work. Your body's going to adapt to anything. But the longer you get in the tooth, It matters. We have to keep the intensity and the volume. We're looking for that swelling, right? So that's a mistake I see a lot. People taking too much rest, too long a rest in between sets because they're chit-chatting and they're distracted or they're looking at the phones and things like that. Be aware of your rest period. Now, women can get away with less rest than men. I'll do a separate podcast on this, but we have it's the type of muscle fibers and how they are, how resistant they are to fatigue. But generally, women can do supersets and circuits and maintain their strength pretty well with minimal rest in between. Most guys do not, and that's not a weakness. It's they have more fast twitch muscle fibers, which take longer to recover. So I will train men and women pretty differently like that. What about to increase volume? We could be doing increasing the sets, but if you're increasing the sets, I would definitely reduce the rest. Otherwise, you're just going to be in the gym a long time. So if you decide you're going to do like 6 sets of everything, then you better not be taking, if you're doing 3, 4 exercises and you're taking, 2, 3 minutes in between, you're just going to be in the gym too long. You're losing the intensity. You're losing the volume. There's other techniques here. There's the 10v10. I don't do this all the time, but you pick an exercise and you do 10 reps of 10 sets of 10 reps with 1 minute in between. And what you do there is you find, and you can do the calculation, you do about 80% of your 1 rep max. So if you want to look it up, do a little Google search for 1 rep max calculator, and you can basically find, without doing it, what your 1 rep max would be on a certain lift. So say I can do, I don't know, 12 shoulder presses with 40-pound dumbbells. Then I'm going to guess, but my 1 rep max is probably something like 70 pounds. And there's apps and charts and calculations for that. So you're going to pick a weight that's about 80% of your max, and you're going to do 10 reps. If you can do more than 10 reps, you didn't get your weight correct. All right. You do 10 reps, which is taking you pretty close to failure. You then rest a minute and you do 10 reps again, and you do that 10 times. Now, you might have to you have to get the 10 reps, so you might have to adjust the weight. But that is an awesome protocol of intensity and volume. You've got 10 sets. That's a lot of sets. You've got 10 reps. You haven't just got 10 reps. You've got 10 reps, which are using a weight that is taking you very close to failure. And you're also taking a minimal rest in between sets. That's a perfect example of volume. Would I do that every workout? Absolutely not. I might do that for squats once a month or something. I might do that for shoulder press once a month. It's just an example. If you are training for hypertrophy, your tools are the weight you're lifting. Whatever the weight is, you need to be getting pretty close to failure. If you are not getting close to failure, you're not recruiting the fast twitch muscle fiber, you're not optimizing the fast twitch muscle fibers, it's not optimal. Let's just put it like that. So they'll call it reps in reserve. So reps in reserve is, and this is where it gets subjective, but the more you do this, the more you know your own body. Reps in reserve is how many more reps could you have got? When you finish a set, if you could have got 8 more reps, then that wasn't a working set. The reps in reserve want to be between 2 and 5. So, if it's something like a squat, maybe the reps in reserve I might aim for a 4, meaning that when I finish my set, I potentially had, if I really ground down, I maybe had 4 more reps in there. Something like a bicep curl, I might take it to a 2 reps in reserve, right? 2 or not, meaning that when I finished doing that curl, I possibly had 2 more reps I could get. Meaning that working sets being the sets that count, need to take you very close to failure. You don't have to go to failure. We'll leave that for the strength athletes, but we do have to get pretty close to failure. The reason I said a squat might be 5 and a bicep curl might be 2, it gets down to this risk reward. You know, there's just certain exercises that, am I going to do a bent over row and go to a 1 rep in reserve? No, there's a chance I might hurt myself. Am I going to take a squat and legit go to a 2 reps in reserve? Maybe if I've got a spotter. But again, I don't need to for hypertrophy. So at 57, I'm going to err on the side of caution, and I'm going to go for maybe a more 3 to 4 reps in reserve. Yeah. So again, the tools, you have the weight that you're lifting. You have the reps that you're doing, with the caveat that you need to be getting pretty close to failure. Otherwise, it's not a working set. You've got the number of working sets, and you have the rest in between sets, which for hypertrophy training, I would say ladies, it can be less than a minute. Guys, you can't be going over 2 minutes. Even then, I think 2 minutes is just me. I think 2 minutes is, the studies say you can do 2 minutes, but I think that's too long. But they're the variables that you can mix and match to make completely different workouts. So some workouts are going to be slower, some can be faster, some can be shorter, some can be heavier. That's, to me, what makes hypertrophy training so much more fun. And for me personally, it's what has steered me away from being a strength athlete. Even though I was a professional bodybuilder, I never had any desire whatsoever to do the strength work that the powerlifters were doing, because that just doesn't appeal to me. That there's no right and no wrong in that. Just for me, that lack of variation just didn't bring me as much joy as hypertrophy training. But guys, this is a subject I could go on and on and on about. So I'm going to leave it here for now. But your training, volume, and intensity, but they all have to be in place. So you've got the weights that you're using, but you've got the reps. The reps have to go close to failure. If you've got the weight, but if you're not utilizing the reps, the formula doesn't work. Okay, so you've got the weight, you've got the reps, but you only do 1 set. The formula doesn't work. There wasn't enough volume. Okay, so you've got the weight, you've got the reps. The reps are going pretty close to failure. You've got the sets, but you're looking at your phone, you're taking 3 or 4 minutes in between. It's not optimal. We're getting the reps. The reps can be anywhere from 6 to 30. Don't care for hypertrophy. That's the other thing. The reps can be all over the place, but the weight, the reps have to get close to failure. You can't leave the set with 12 reps in reserve. You've got to be closer. So now you've got the weight, you've got the reps, you're getting the reps you're getting in your working sets. You've only got a few reps left in reserve. You're very close to failure. You're getting the sets, and you're taking enough rest in between sets to maintain the strength, but not so much that you lose the intensity. You have this formula, and then you train that muscle or that body part. This is a whole other conversation, right? How often should you train a body part? But not less than 40 hours in between. I'd say that's too soon. I would say personally more like 72 hours, but you can't leave it too long. If you train a body part and you do it once a week, like, hey, Monday's leg day, or no, actually Monday's chest day, right? In the entire world, Monday is chest day. Go to a gym and try and train chest on a Monday. But if you only do it on a Monday, there's too much time gone by. You've left it too long. You have to be loud and frequent. Yeah, you have to be intense and frequent. The muscle has to recover. There's no point training the muscle too soon. Not only will the muscle not build, it won't even repair, and you'll be going backwards. So be loud and frequent, and getting a body part or a muscle group in, say, twice a week, maybe in its own 7-day cycle, say with 72 hours in between, but not a week. Not a week. consistency. You have the hypertrophy volume intensity formula, match that or link that to consistency where the muscle is getting enough time to recover, but it is getting trained frequently enough, because infinitely frequently won't work either. I mean, it'll do something, it's just not optimal. Anyway, these are things I was covering in my Muscle Month program. It was a month-long program. It's not going to be back till, maybe I'll do it again this year. Doubtful. But next up is my Tight 28 program. So my Tight 28 program is going to start on May the 25th of 2024, whenever you listen to this. The Tight 28 program is, let's call it an advanced weight loss program. So my 21-day signature weight loss program is epic. Epic. I mean, good gosh. The Tight 28 is my opportunity to cover topics that I wasn't able to, didn't have time to cover in the 21-day program, or that I just felt were too advanced for people just coming into the weight loss arena. So it's my opportunity to geek out a little bit and talk about topics that are not often discussed, and yet they're fascinating. Also, the Tight 28 program, it is the meal plans are optional, but the meal plans are all gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free, and added sugar-free. And I discussed the role that food intolerances have with weight loss goals. It is my least attended program, yet it is the program that I get the greatest results. I mean, the results can be rapid. You take food sensitivities and tolerances away, results can be quick. It is least attended. I laugh because I really don't care. Because people are like, man, I don't want to be gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, I don't want to do that. And yet there's some of the best meal plans I've ever written. In the next podcast, I'll talk a little bit more about that program, because it is interesting. And again, I'm not doing any hardcore elimination diet unless you absolutely need to. All I do is, for 28 days, take out the 4 major irritants, and it can be amazing the results you get and you feel, because that program is way beyond weight loss. I mean, this is skin clears up, energy vastly improves, people can sleep. Oh, I don't take Tums anymore, Joanne. I mean, that one's a big one. Joint pain vanishes. Happier, seriously, happier, more motivated. Oh, no bloating, my digestion's better. The results are the best result, the quickest results I get are with the Tight 28 program. Anyway, today's podcast was about volume for hypertrophy training. But if you are interested in the Tight 28 program, the website is www.tight28.com. All the topics that we're going to cover are in there. But we start really soon. So May 25th. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I trust I sparked your interest, provided a nugget or two of wisdom, and armed you with something practical for immediate use. If you've got burning questions or specific topics that you'd like me to tackle, check out the show notes for ways to reach out. Until next time, stay curious. If you've enjoyed this content, be sure to click the link in the show notes to explore how we can work together. And please go to www.theshrinkshop.com.